Thank you and good morning. Show of hands, who here wants to be successful? Most people want to be successful. Yeah, if you haven't put your hand up, you maybe have a bit of a think about it, but I give this talk around the world. I've given it to a group of young school children, I've given it to university graduates, and I think I'd be able to predict which one of you are going to be successful. It's how you'll actually react after my talk. And in fact, 12 months ago, I was here, and after that talk, a number of people came up to me. Some actually emailed me or followed me on Twitter. And those people, I think, will be successful because they do something different. Now, as I was preparing this talk, I thought back to when I was your age. And when I was sitting in a room like this, listening to some old guy talking about something that he knew about, what would I want to hear? And I wish I had someone like me when I was your age, telling me how to get ahead in life and how to get ahead in my career. So the next 20 or 25 minutes, I'm going to give you 30 years of experience. The things I've done well, the things I've learned from, and how you can actually use this to get ahead in life. It's about rising above the noise. The thing about all of you in front of me right now, I'm a potential employer. And to me, you all look exactly the same. I don't know any of you, I've not met any of you, I don't know your background, I don't know what you're good at and what you like doing. But when you leave school, when you go to university or go into a job or go to another organisation, you'll have to actually stand out. Because there are literally hundreds of thousands of other people just like you that want your job, your university place, your opportunity. So sitting here today, when you go into the Christmas break, you can think about how you might do things differently in 2018 to stand out and rise above this noise. Even at my stage in my career, I still have to compete. I have to compete for jobs, I have to compete for clients. Even when I'm public speaking, I have to compete to be the one that gets on stage. So there's no letting up. So why not start now and work out how you can actually rise above that noise floor? I thought I'd give you a bit of a view about my own career journey. It's been an interesting one. I'm Australian, as you can hear. I've lived here 11 years, I'm a dual citizen. But my path to standing here today has been quite unique. And I'm wondering if, show of hands, anyone knows what this is? I expected no one would. That was my first computer back in 1980. 1980. It was called a Sinclair ZX80, made here in the UK. It had 1 kilobyte of RAM and 4K of ROM, and you plugged it into a television set. And that's how I learned all about computing and what got me interested. Now, a few months ago, my daughter Madeline, she's 11 now, she and I were visiting the Science Museum, and we walked past this glass case. And behind the glass case was an Apple II computer and a Sinclair ZX80. And Madeline turned to me, she says, "Daddy, isn't that your computer you kept talking about?" "Yes, it is." "But it's behind a glass case in the museum. You must be really old." "Yes, Madeline, I'm really old." Hands up, who knows what this sound is? Okay. I'm going to shock you now. Back in my age, the age of some of the staff here, we had to dial up to the internet. It wasn't always on. You would literally have to hear that noise, and it would dial up not at 15 or 20 megabits a second, it would dial up at 33 kilobits per second, the slowest possible speed you could imagine. And so back in 1983, I was dialing up to things called bulletin boards, where you would leave a message, which we now call email, and then hours later I'd ring up to see if my friends had left me any messages. Now I guarantee you, if you had to spend a day like I did connecting to the internet, you would be so frustrated because it would take you so long to connect you would actually give up. I haven't actually always been successful myself. When I left school, a few years older than you are now, I wondered what I was going to do next. And I thought, well, I hadn't done that well in my final exams. And one thing I would do differently was I would work a lot harder in my final year, because in Australia, your final year score determined where you could go to university. And my score was so low, I had to choose my fifth option, which was a science degree, and I hated it. I know I hated it because the first year I did my chemistry exam and I got 8 out of 100. And the second year in my maths exam, we're in a big gymnasium, and the rule was that after half an hour, you could leave. And so I looked at the first page of the exam, it was a maths equation, you had to prove why 1 times 0 was 0. Like, don't you know, it seems obvious. But if you couldn't do that, you failed the exam. So half an hour into that exam, I walked out knowing I had failed science degree 2 years in a row. That was a wake-up call for me. This is before social media. I couldn't tweet, you know, I'm looking for another career. And so I decided to go and do an engineering degree. And in the first year of the engineering degree, back in Adelaide, Australia, there was a notice that went up around the university talking about a brand new building that was a research building. And the message said, if you're interested to know what the building's going to be about, come along at 1 o'clock on Thursday and there's an information session. So I went along. I was the only student in a campus of 5,000 students that bothered to turn up. So at the end of the talk, Professor Mike Miller, who was the person running it, said, any questions? And I went up afterwards and said, Professor Miller, my name's Andrew Grill, I'm a first-year engineering student. When this building is built, you're going to need students to do the research, aren't you? Yes, come and see me in my office. So I got a job at the university while I was studying. And my friends thought it was unfair. That's not fair. How come you got that job where you can walk across the road after lectures and work part-time at the university? I said I did something different. I rose above the noise. I stood out. That's what you've got to do. And Professor Miller saw in me an entrepreneurial spirit. Now, this is where the career takes off. So, working in South Australia, I was working for a company called Optus in Sydney. And I got some really senior roles and I got to do some amazing things. One of my jobs every month was to create a TV show internally in the organisation so that we could actually promote our products to all of the staff around Australia. So I was producing a TV show every month. That was the highlight. What I decided to do when I was in Sydney was join a charity organisation called Rotary International. Some of you may know about Rotaract. They're an arm of Rotary. It's a worldwide charitable organisation. And the thing is, it's designed for business people to network and also to do good charity work. So I joined the Rotary Club of Sydney, the country's largest and most established club, at the age of 29. And I was massively out of my depth because everyone else there was 49, 59, 69 years old. But what it allowed me to do was, again, rise above the noise. Where else was I going to meet CEOs and captains of industry in a networking environment? And so I could do something different. And again, my friend said, how can you get all these great jobs? Well, I know these people. And actually, as part of the Rotary Club, the president at the time was the head of a real estate company called C.B. Richard Ellis. The gentleman's name was Bill Chillingworth. He's still a good friend of mine. And he said, Andrew, we're looking to do a joint venture between our competitors to put all of our commercial property on one website. This is back in 2001, a bit like Rightmove or one of those property websites. We need someone to be the CEO. So at the age of 30, I became the CEO of Australia's largest commercial property website. I was still pinching myself. How did I get this job? It wasn't advertised. It was because I knew someone and they knew what I could do and I could rise above the noise. So if we fast forward, this is the first of 6 different startups that I ran over a 12-year period. In my 5th startup, I was actually in Seattle about to fly down to San Francisco. And what happened next is what I call social serendipity. It's about using social media to be at the right place at the right time. And when I was flying from Seattle down to San Francisco, I landed and I tweeted, "Arrive San Francisco." Now, I'm not sure how many of you use Twitter, but I have been using it for a long time, and I learned the language of Twitter, how it works. What happened next was remarkable. Another Australian who I'd never met saw my tweet and said, let's catch up. So we caught up, we had lunch at Fisherman's Wharf. That led to me becoming the CEO of a company doing social media influence. And 18 months into that role, IBM came knocking and said, we'd love you to come and become a global managing partner in our organisation and help us run our social business program. So I can honestly say that one tweet actually got me a job at IBM. So you're probably all using social media in some form, but I want to tell you how to use social media to get noticed. If I'm a potential employer, how do you rise above the noise and actually stand out so I notice you and think, well, maybe I'll put you onto my project or I'll put you onto my team or you can join the graduate program. Who here knows about LinkedIn? Hands up. And who's on LinkedIn? Now, when I gave this talk last year, I had the same sort of response. But in the last 12 months, LinkedIn has changed. It has become more dynamic and I see younger voices on it. And I would encourage you to explore what LinkedIn is and how you might actually set up a profile. Same goes with Twitter. I bet you, show of hands, how many people are on Twitter? A few. Oh, a few more than I expected. I'm on Twitter. So if you want to get noticed, you should be following me. Back to my opening statement, the ones that are going to be successful will do the electronic tap on the shoulder. Hi, at Andrew Grill, heard your talk on Friday. Let's stay in touch. So you can start to use these networks to actually rise above the noise. Now, LinkedIn is great. It allows you to really show off what you're doing. So my profile page has got some nice photographs. It's got videos of me presenting. It allows me to show off what I do. And I guarantee you, when I was at IBM, I would go into a meeting with CEOs, and before the meeting started, I'd say, can I ask a cheeky question? Go ahead. When you saw my name on the meeting invitation and that I was coming, what's the first thing you did? They said, oh, we looked you up on LinkedIn or Google. This happens all the time. And I guarantee when you're out working and your name is put forward for a role or a project, the first thing the client will do is they will put your name into Google or LinkedIn to find out who you are. And you have a choice of being invisible or being very noticed. And what I've been doing recently is starting to put content on LinkedIn. LinkedIn allows you to do a 1,300 character update, like a long tweet. It also allows you to do longer form blogs. But what I found is that by doing short, sharp pieces of content, this one here got 19,000 people viewing it. And in the last 3 or 4 weeks, I've actually had some job opportunities and some speaking opportunities just because I was active on LinkedIn. So if I can do it, you can do it as well. Now, there are some perils to social media, and I'll talk about some of those in a minute, but I thought I would explain to you in 60 seconds how not to do social with this short clip.
Hi guys, hiya. Can I be your friend? Can I be your friend?
What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All my friends have got like, you know, like 1,300 friends. I've only got 99.
1,000 friends.
Because it's cool to have a lot of friends. Isn't it good to have?
Loads of friends. You just need like 4 or 5 good friends.
Do you want to maybe look at some photos of like me with my mates, and maybe you'd like want to be my friend more?
Yeah.
If I showed you some pictures of my life, it's really cool. You'd be a bit more interested.
No thanks.
Sorry, I just poked you. This is my friends, like, playing this really cool game. You don't show any of your photos to strangers. What's wrong with you? Can I poke you?
Now, clearly that's a joke, but I show that video around the world to people that run social media channels and accounts, and they laugh in a very embarrassing way because they, yeah, we're doing that. So that is how not to do social. That is how not to get noticed and to annoy people. There's a nice backstory to this. I play this clip so often that people started talking about the fact I did it. In fact, the guy in it, Joylan, tweeted me a few years ago and said, I hear you use a video of me all the time. Can I be your friend? So even he was noticing. Hands up, how many of you think you are a brand? Okay. At the moment, we've got 0%. By the end of my talk, I want a few of you to consider brand you. Like I said before, how are you going to stand out? All the clothes you're wearing, all the products you buy, all have a brand on them. And you may have bought them because of the brand. Apple's a great example. We seem to buy Apple products all the time because we like what Apple is about and we know the quality we're going to get. Same with other brands as well. But you need to consider yourself as a brand, and a brand that you can market, and a brand that you have to actually make sure you are increasing in value all the time. And not many people can get their head around this. I'm not a brand. There's no logo on me. But again, you all look the same. For you to stand out, I want to see what your brand is about. And I guarantee you that there's 90 people here, you all have a very different brand. You'll have a different way you would approach marketing yourself and actually communicating in the market. But I want you to think about, what is your digital first impression? So if I'm this potential employer, if I'm a potential university academic, and I put your name into Google, what comes up? You've really got to build your brand and understand what you stand for. And so I'll give you an example. I landed in London in 2006 knowing pretty much no one. And I had to establish my brand from scratch because I had to let people know what I knew, how I could help them, and eventually my brand started to become more and more known. I started to get more job opportunities. I was asked to speak at organisations like yours. And my brand has risen, and I can even put a value to the brand. When I joined IBM, I was negotiating my starting salary, and I actually increased it by what I thought my brand was worth, and they said yes. They saw there was value, monetary value, in my brand. Because there's an old saying that says it's not what you know, it's who you know. I think it goes one step further. It's who knows what you know. And so if my brand is valuable, and you talk about what I do, a lot of people buy from people, so they want recommendations. Who do you think's a great speaker on digital? Oh, I heard this guy called Andrew Grill talk. Oh, he might be worth having along. These referrals happen and then they amplify themselves on social media. If you're looking for a book on this to read, if any of you are interested, a good friend of mine, Mark Schaefer, has written a book called Known. It's all about being known. It's an easy read. It's got about 50 case studies of people from all ages and stages developing their personal brand. And it's a great book to read if you want to sort of get into this and understand how it might help you. Now, there are a number of other things you can do to build your brand. Show of hands, who has a blog? Wow, last year 3 in the group had a blog. This is interesting. I think you should start a blog. Why? Because at the moment, blogs aren't as popular as, say, Snapchat or Facebook or the other networks, so you can stand out. And if you have your own blog and your own thinking, then you can actually start putting that out there. And it's really easy to start. If you go to WordPress, you can actually set up a blog for free. And you can have your blog at wordpress.com. But again, thinking about your personal brand, that's advertising WordPress's brand, not yours. So for the price of a cup of coffee or 2 a year, you can actually buy your own domain name. And I bet you none of you thought, well, I'm going to buy my own domain name. I've got andrewgrill.com, and I've had that since 1999. That means it follows me everywhere. My email's attached to that, my website's on that. That allows Google to start finding me associated with my name. And so rather than having a Gmail address that has Google's brand, I can actually have my brand. And a lot of you might think this is a bit foreign, but I encourage you to think about it over Christmas. How can I actually promote my brand to a wider audience? Now, I mentioned there are pitfalls with social media, and this time last year I got a bit of flack. I was a bit controversial because I dared to say that you shouldn't put photos like this on social media. Who here thinks this is a great idea to put this on your Facebook page for everyone to see? Now, I'll explain why, because a lot of people said, well, hey, it's my life and what I do in my own time is up to me. But let me give you an example. So you've just joined IBM or Accenture or EY or a big firm, and your name's being put forward for a new project, multi-million-pound project. And 1 of 5 people have been put forward, and the client says, who is Trevor Smith? I'll type in Trevor Smith, and the first thing he sees is this photograph. Do you want Trevor Smith? Let's call him Trevor. I don't know who, this is just off the internet. Let's assume that's Trevor Smith, and that's on his Facebook page. Do you want this person on your multi-billion-pound project, which represents the face of that company, to the public? No. So the employer is going to say, no, sorry, I don't want that person. Now, when I was at IBM, I know that the graduate intake, they absolutely look at social media profiles. That is one of the screening things that they do. So here's a tip. If you have pictures like this, it's your property, put them on a storage drive, take them off the internet. If you want to try a trick, go to archive.org. Archive.org has been scraping websites since about 2000. And you can go back and look at stuff that you think you've deleted. It is still there. So that's a good tip. So I said last year I had some controversy. In fact, one of the students actually emailed me. I want to share this email with you. I'm not going to name the person, but they start off by saying, hi, you spoke at my school not long ago, and I just have a question out of curiosity which I didn't think of at the time. You said you wouldn't hire someone who posted a picture of them drinking or someone drunk. Well, drinking is something majority of our population do, fair enough. And it's not illegal, and social media isn't necessarily used for business and work all the time for some people. For some, it's sharing memories with their friends and for overall fun use, and not to hire someone because of an activity most people, even maybe yourself, yes, I drink, could be unfair. I agree with that statement, except that, going back to my picture before, if that is your digital first impression, that's a very bad first impression. Ironically, the second half of the email actually contradicted the first part. The person wrote, my dad has told me before that he hasn't hired people and even fired people in the past because he's seen them swearing on social media. What people do in their private life isn't necessarily how they behave in the workplace, so to judge someone and take them away from an opportunity because of their behaviour outside work isn't fair to me. Of course, I'm not an adult, I haven't experienced work life, and I don't have a proper understanding. Let me tell you, take the dumb stuff off Facebook. If your first impression is that, I will not hire you. I will not recommend you, and you will do yourself out of a career. There's nothing wrong with drinking, there's nothing wrong with having fun, there's nothing wrong with having a picture taken of you drinking, having fun, but just don't put it on the internet. Okay, I would happily be argued against that, but I'm an employer and I know that it happens. So, think about what is your digital first impression, and you should actually look at your footprint. And look at a thing I call Googleability. So, Everyone uses Google, I'm sure, and I want you to try a trick. So on Google Chrome, there's a mode called incognito mode. Now, why you do this, I'm going to get you as an exercise to Google yourself. But you have to Google yourself as if you're someone else. If you're logged into Gmail, your search results will be tied to what you've looked at before. So by going into incognito mode, which looks a bit like this, it's like it's a brand new look at what you're doing. So, and if you know you're not in incognito, if your picture's at the top there on Google. So I did this last night. I went and Googled my name as a new person. I was on page 1, page 2, and page 3 of Google. Every single result there, and I did not make this up, is me. And there are 13 other Andrew Grills in the world. No one looks past page 2 or 3. They look at page 1, and I own page 1 of Google. So guess what? When my name goes into the search box, when someone's looking to hire me, I have some control over what they see. So my digital footprint, my first impression, I can craft just as you can. Who here has a business card? No? I had a business card when I was very young because, again, it allowed me to stand out. There's a website called moo.com, and for £23, a few cups of coffee and a few sandwiches, you can actually go and create your own business cards from moo.com that look like that. And I've got to tell you, if I was your age and had a business card and you gave one to me, I would absolutely remember you. You would stand out because you were doing something different. So you may not think you need one right now, but like I said, if I was in the audience when I was your age, I would have done all this. I would have been even more successful when I was the age I am now. You may also say, look, I'm not interested in doing a blog, it's all too hard. You can actually do something for free. There's a website called about.me. And it allows you to do that's my link, allows you to do a one-page website for free that then links back to your email and social profiles, things like that. So for absolutely no cost at all, you can actually have your digital footprint set up. So hopefully that has been some useful tips and tricks. Some of you will say, this is not for me, but think back to those 5 or 10 of you that are going to do something different after this talk. I want to finish with something on disruption. You are in the absolutely prime place when you leave to go into work or onto university or further study. Because you are what we call Generation Z. You're not Gen Y, you're Gen Z. You are absolutely ones that have never known the time without the internet. When I played that dial-up tone, no hands went up. You don't know a time without the internet. And companies are craving for your knowledge. And so I want to just give you a sense of how the world is being disrupted and how you can play a part in that. Because whole industries are being disrupted. There was some research from a company called Deloitte a few years ago that looked at different industries, how long it would take to be disrupted, and the impact of that. And the industries represented here are retail, ICT and media, finance, professional services, and real estate. Disruption is everywhere. And so whatever company, whatever university, whatever institution you do next once you leave this school is being disrupted. And if you have a view and a point of view, you can actually be really useful from the first moment that you're employed. Who here uses WhatsApp? Most people. Any idea how many WhatsApps are sent a day? Shout out a number. How many? How about 55 billion WhatsApp messages per day? Now, you're probably too experienced to remember this thing called SMS. We actually paid for messages, now it's free. In comparison, every day around the world, only 20 billion SMSs are sent. So if you're working in a telecommunication organisation, your revenue from this SMS has gone out the door from one website on WhatsApp. We all know about Uber. It's the world's largest taxi company that has no taxis. But even Uber is being disrupted. They're about to potentially lose their taxi licence in London. And they've had this problem around the world. But they were able to disrupt because, in London especially, having to learn the knowledge is quite arduous. So having an app that shows where you are means they can disrupt. World's largest accommodation provider is Airbnb. Who's using Airbnb? They're massively disrupting the hotel industry because you can basically go and stay anywhere rather than having to go through a hotel. And Netflix are producing amazing content. They're rumoured to have spent £100 million pounds or $100 million on The Crown in the last few episodes, and they are now winning awards as well. So these companies are disrupting existing players. Overnight, News Corp Fox has been bought by Disney. That is another wave of disruption. But I want you to stay ahead. I want you to be able to whatever you do next, be on the front foot. And I think there are two different tribes of people that actually work in organisations. And there was a study from a recruitment company called Korn Ferry who said there are two tribes. First is going digital. Most people like me that are in organisations, they don't really know much about technology, but they know how to influence in an organisation and get things done. And then there are you guys, the born digital. And these two tribes have to work together. So if you go into work after school or after university, you are going to be faced with people that have no idea what you know, and you can help guide them. And what I've seen is those young graduates that come up to speed very quickly and help educate and train the going digital people are more successful. So let me reiterate my top tips. First of all, rise above the noise. Do something different. Stand out. Otherwise, you'll all look the same and you'll be competing with everyone else. Give yourself an unfair advantage. Use social to get noticed, and I've given you a bunch of tips on how to do that. Build your own brand. Even if you all think this is a very silly concept, talk to your parents about their company or their work and their brand and how you might actually develop yourself as a brand and how you could stand out. And I would encourage you to start a blog, because you then have content that people can see, and it doesn't have to be about school, it can be about a hobby. It means that Google is going to start associating your name with smart content. So that's me. The 5 or 10 of you that will contact me afterwards will need this information, and I would love some very disruptive questions. Thank you very much.